So today we're going to look at an amusing article, but first I gotta provide some context. So let's do a brief summary of the last 5 years. Trump was a pretty impressive president by most objectively measurable policy accounts, and the media have no answer to any of it, which is why even to this day they continue their proud tradition of shrieking to the high heavens like an autistic banshee about the democracy being in peril because the corporate press is composed of a bunch of Karens. So the media outrage, woke nonsense, hijacking a portion of the Democratic Party and Biden selected for presidency has produced a toxic brew of severe stupidity, seeing as Biden was told on day one, rip out anything and everything with Trump's name on it because the shadow puppet masters that control Biden are deluded psychopaths. So, given the above, the Democrats have an amusing problem. See, the progressive lunatics, who are a bunch of bobbleheads who spend all of their time in the echo chamber that is social media, have submerged themselves in an artificial world where they think their ideas are shared by the population at large. Come to find out that this is not the case, and their policy ideas suck ass wherever it's been tried. Case in point, democratic cities, the US as it is right now, and the White House's tanking approval ultimately ending up with the Democratic brand in delightful disarray. For all of their talk of democracy, the fringe whack jobs seem to not understand that means majority rule, and the majority rule all of you as a bunch of pathetic losers. Now, however, seeing as the red wave has started to boom in the distance, they've decided to hit code red, panic, and went, okay, no, this is not working, and we need to rebrand immediately, or else the Republicans are going to clean house. Their strategy, are you ready for this? Be Trump. No, I am not kidding. The article lists a bunch of areas the Democrats must improve on, quote unquote. In reality, for those who don't pay attention to the stupid language warfare the Democrats are so hell-bent on, and instead pay attention to policy and its effectiveness, we'll see their suggestions are straight out of Trump's playbook. There is just one problem with all of that, and I will save that for the end. Starting out with the idea that if you're a Democrat, you may be on board with the woke talking points, the injustices of society, which, let's be real, is blacks commit more crime because white liberals think black people are stupid and without the benevolent white savior, they will never amount to anything, self-bigotry of low expectations, etc., etc., and that woke politics is genderless, sexless, and godless. Well, they are overwhelmingly atheists, yet they treat the state like a god, and I've always found it quite funny. The same people that think sex is malleable and interchangeable seem to give a massive right bollock about seeing more women in positions of power for some reason. Missy's contradiction there, but moving on. Then, of course, we have the obligatory nod to the threat to American democracy imposed by the mere existence of Republicans, the talking point that seems to be the most pervasive propagandistic slogan of the current political paradigm as more Democrats continue to do the autistic screeching dance with their hair on fire. Welcome to 2022, folks, as we will continue to observe Democrats project harder than a virgin overdosing on mammoth quantities of Viagra. So apparently, these groups of well-funded nannies needed think tanks to arrive at this beautiful conclusion. Stop with the identity politics, the politically correct language, the call-outs to specific groups, the explicit targeting that suggests one race or type of person will benefit, craft a simple, inclusive economic message that cuts across all differences and appeals to all. I think I have a slogan that encompasses all of that quite nicely.
Make America great again.
I had to throw that in at least once somewhere. Anyway, let's crack on, shall we? First up, identity politics is a turnoff. You needed a think tank for that? Really? Oof, we're off to a great start, aren't we? Apparently, according to 2,000 working-class voters, a voting bloc it's obvious the Democratic elite disregard with complete contempt and disgust, by the way. They find the identity politics jargon off-putting. No shit, Sherlock, you people openly bash them. Insert Clinton and her basket of deplorable comment. Another with the Virginia voters who pulled the lever for Youngkin or who thought about it associated the Dems with breaking down social barriers, yet ultimately do bugger all else but fight and don't help the working people, the middle class, or people like them. I could swear I came across this in a previous video where Virginia's own Democratic voters couldn't tell a polling firm what Democrats actually stood for. There's no wonder these people are crapping bricks. It's fantastic. Political scientist Rai Taxiera, I am probably butchering that name, my apologies, sir, reinforced those findings in a recent update on what he calls Democrats' 5 deadly sins: identity politics, retrosocialism, catastrophism, growth phobia, and techno-pessimism. They should be aiming instead, he writes, for universal appeal, fairer capitalism, practical solutions, economic growth, and optimism that technology can produce an abundant future. Now hold on, I need to translate those 5 things into non-leftist speak, so let's see. State intervention, state intervention, state intervention, state intervention, and more state intervention. Okay, all joking aside, let's look at those. Universal appeal, practical solutions, and technology can produce an abundant future. What the hell does any of that even mean? If you ask regular people about those phrases, you will get completely different answers from everyone or a puzzled look on their faces. Furthermore, fairer capitalism means either increase in the minimum wage or increased taxes on the rich, neither of which has ever worked, by the way. You're just going to get more taxes overall, which is going to stifle economic growth. Welcome to Econ 101. This is classic Bonaparte strategy on behalf of the Republicans. Never interrupt your opponent while they're making a mistake. It's why the Republicans are not doing much. They're just sitting back with a Coke and a smile. Apparently, the Dems must adopt a democratic version of the Republican slogan, smaller government, lower taxes, personal freedom. Something like fairer taxes, freedom to succeed, government that works for everyone. Okay, first off, taxation is theft. There's no such thing as fair tax. That is an oxymoron. Freedom to succeed. How is your lockdown policies doing, blue states? Clearly, given the former stupid points and several Dems caught violating their own restrictive policies over and over again and then buggering off to red states like Florida for a holiday, I think we can safely say democratic government works only for the elite. Again, all of this is mindless sloganeering that ultimately changes jack shit. Next up on the list of no freaking kidding policy proposals, crime. Safer Cities research studied defund the police, refund the police, and fully fund public safety. Not surprisingly, fully fund worked best. It is the most popular frame, it reflects the core values shared by most Americans around public safety, and it communicates the gist of the approach efficiently. Also, in our view, it protects the best against backlash from both those who view refund as an affront and those who view defund as a threat. Fully fund is defund with different words. Who are you people kidding? The fact that defund the police actually caught wind at all shows you how stupid these people are. This is why universal suffrage is a really bad idea, by the way. Next up, CRT, and I'll read this part because this is my favorite stupid bit. Also, we're going to play a game called Spot the Bollocks. There's simply no answer to conservative attacks on critical race theory. It's mostly imagined presence in K-12 classrooms and the related issues of parental control over curriculum, school masking, and remote learning. But they can't be ignored. So how should Democrats respond? On CRT, conservative Gary Abernathy says there's a lot for conservatives to embrace. He suggests stressing the core CRT concept that racial unfairness is embedded in U.S. policies and law. While people may be willing to recognize and admit this, he writes, as long as they are not blamed for a foundation that was laid long before they were born. Okay, there is so much to address in this part. First things first article, would you care to highlight why certain minorities, such as Indians and Koreans, outperform their white majority counterparts? What is it about them that causes that disparity, I wonder? Will you address that? No, of course not. It might lead to logical conclusions like hard work, appreciation for education, and a strong family structure, and not having a subculture that glorifies sexual promiscuity, drugs, and violent crime. It does highlight, however, beautifully, that the right knows a hell of a lot more about the left than the left knows about the right. The right isn't going to listen to CRT propaganda simply because the propagandists call themselves a conservative. They are individualistic and not collectivist driven. And now for the Spot the Bollocks game. Did you see it? It's from paragraph 1 to 2. First one is mostly imagined presence, but in the second it's on CRT, there's a lot for conservatives to embrace. Come again? How do you reconcile these two positions exactly? Furthermore, remember at the beginning of this article and the 5 deadly democratic sins? First on both was drop the identity politics. How do you drop the identity politics and then tacitly endorse CRT on the sly while also saying it's mostly imagined? Do you see now, with crap like this, why the Republican strategists are just laughing? This is ridiculous. And again, we're right back to the sins of identity politics. Numbers and evidence shows identity politics is on the wrong path. The Democratic elite may get repeated hard-ons talking about race, but their constituents find it counterproductive and unnecessary. Shockingly, most Democratic voters are not woke and find the woke crap off-putting. According to Pew Research Center, more than half of Democratic voters identify as establishment liberals or Democratic mainstays. The progressive lefties make up 12% of voting coalition, surprise, surprise. And this is the best thing about why the left are failing so spectacularly. Because their progressive base is young and Well, insane. They are the loudly barking mad chihuahuas who make the Democratic Party look so unhinged, even if they're only the fringe minorities, because raving lunacy gets clicks and eyeballs. It's wonderful. The attention-seeking drug is driving them off a cliff. It gives Republicans the perfect enemy to attack. And by attack, I mean simply point to it and go, oh wow, that's nuts. Yeah, let's not do that. Then, of course, we have the paid family leave BS, and the Democrats don't want to go with dry policy, I wonder why, and instead want a heartstring-tugging ad featuring a smiling baby and a mother with the tagline, paid family leave isn't woke. It's real life, and it's good for the economy. Substitute broadband, health coverage, clean air, childcare, universal pre-K, dental care for grandma, whatever Democrats have achieved or aspire to, and you've got yourself an ad campaign. Yeah, that's all lies, by the way. It is not good for the economy. I think in the latest provision of the Build Back Bolshevik agenda, I'm not sure about this, but I think Manchin wanted this cut because it's too damn expensive, and the real cost is a lot higher than the Democrats disguise it to be. What they do is they make the provisions temporary, set to expire after a few years, but they get people dependent on the state and make it so the next person has to extend them, otherwise they look politically indecent and cruel, and that's how they disguise the real cost in the long run. It's not 1.8 trillion, it's more like 4 trillion over 8 to 10 years, those sneaky bastards. So that baby is likely going to grow up in an economy drowning in debt for its adult life. What a great show of caring, Democrats. Of course, they don't care. Load of the Democrats who advocate for this crap will be long dead before the hellish consequences of such a policy surfaces anyway. Short-term gain, long-term, screw you, I'm not in politics and I'm minted is the slogan of a politician in a democracy. But the person who really understood this was Obama, who definitely avoided identity politics, which is complete BS. We got Trump as a backlash to the politically correct nonsense, for heaven's sakes. The country got more divided under Obama, not less. But according to Derek Thompson, who wrote in The Atlantic in September of 2016, Obama, through his healthcare law, tax code changes, push for a higher minimum wage, and support for state and local governments during the 2009 crash, Obama did more to fight income inequality than any president in 50 years. First off, I remember the "you can keep your doctor" lie of Obamacare. I remember listening to commentators saying that their healthcare costs went through the roof under Obama. Minimum wage increases production costs, it makes things more expensive and causes layoffs and reduced hours. That does not help income inequality, that worsens it. Again, Basic Econ 101. And more to fight income inequality than any other president in the last 50 years. Really? Is that so? Income inequality grows 4 times faster under Obama than Bush. Look where that's from. World Socialist website. Hardly a right-wing source now, is it? Oh look, here is another one. Income inequality grew faster under Obama according to one measure. Huffington Post. Not exactly the bastion of conservative thought now, is it? And if we scroll down, we will see, according to the New York Times. The wealthy took home a greater share of the nation's income during the years following the recession under Obama than between 2002 and 2007 under Bush, according to a 2012 analysis from Emmanuel Zayas, a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, one of the most left-leaning colleges in the entire United States. And if we look here at the top 10% share of total net worth by percentile of wealth owners between 1989 and 2013, you will see an increase of 67.2% in 89 to 71.5% in 07. That's a 4.3% increase in 18 years and across 3 presidents, an average of 0.23% per year. Little over into Obama's second term in 2013, it's 75.2%. That's a 3.7% increase in just 6 years, an average of 0.67% per year. If Obama fought income inequality, I think income inequality would be called racist brutality because it whooped his black ass. So I think it's safe to say Derek Thompson and the author of this article are full of shit. Try doing your homework next time and stop peddling fake news. There's still far more to be done to correct economic inequality and other injustices, which statistically the Democrats have made worse. Isn't that funny? It was Clinton that put more black men in jail than any other administration. As a matter of fact, the man who currently pretends he is the president is largely responsible for the crime bill that made that disparity happen in the first place. And income inequality grew faster under Obama. Imagine that, the Democrats are charlatans, who'd have thought? That's an excellent reason for Democrats to fight hard enough this year to prove the midterm doomsayers wrong. Good luck with that. The other, even better reason is to make sure the Republican Party isn't rewarded for perpetrating lies and trying to subvert elections. Here's a fun fact. Did you know the Democrats have contested every single Republican presidential victory since Clinton? Hell, in 2016, that administration spied on an incoming presidential campaign, and the opposition spent money gathering false evidence to smear that incoming president as a Russian puppet and wasted $40 million of the taxpayers' money investigating it. But it's the Republicans who perpetrate the lies. We cannot allow this GOP to dismantle U.S. democracy and permanently seize power. Right, because if the Democrats hold power, democracy totally works. But when it's the Republicans holding majority seats, then its authoritarianism is moments away. Hell will be knocking on the door any minute now. Those last three words, permanently seize power, that does not sound like someone who lives in a land of elected representation. That sounds like the mindset of someone who wishes for totalitarian control and sees mere opposition as a threat to their rule. These people view the Republicans' mere existence as a threat to their hegemonic aspirations. But I want to say two things before I wrap this up. If you've made it this far, thank you, I hope you've enjoyed the video. But also, in my opinion, the Democrats are still going to get curb-stomped into oblivion, and here's why. During this entire spiel of an article, and even in the actions of the administration in the last year, nowhere does it mention any deviation whatsoever in terms of policy. The entire piece is literally nothing but a re-advertising campaign. There is not a single pivoting away suggestion from the policies that have resulted in this mess. Not even one. Well, that was a mouthful of garbage. Excuse me while I go drown this complete load of Codswalloping whiskey. And that's all for today. Until next time.